Hello and welcome to the Federal. I'm joined by Mr. S P Udayakumar, the head of People's Movement Against Nuclear Energy, and also the face and the person who represented a massive protest that raged about 10 years ago in Kudankulam against the nuclear power reactor that was coming up there. Thank you so much for joining us, sir.
Thank you.
So much has happened after that. It's been over a decade now. And even now, we see reports coming out from that region, from Idinthakarai especially, that people in that region are still uncertain about the cases that they were booked under during those protests. I hear about 8,000 people are still wondering what's going to happen to the cases again. We'll begin by asking you, what is the status right now? Even you were booked under several cases. What is the situation right now?
Yes, they foisted 380 cases on us. Almost all of them were wrong and concocted cases. And after the Supreme Court judgment, many of them were withdrawn by the Jayalalitha government. They have been withdrawing cases incrementally, and now we are left with 67 cases, including sedition, waging war on the state, attempt to murder, arson, and a couple of other cases. The Honorable Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu said during the election hustings that his government would withdraw all the cases. But now they are coming up with explanations that the PPDL, public property damage cases or something like that, those cases cannot be withdrawn. So they are taking their time. But we are of the opinion that all the cases have been foisted on wrong grounds, and those cases must be withdrawn because our people are not able to apply for passports, and police NOCs they are not able to get. So it affects the livelihood of hundreds of even thousands of young people. So we have been appealing to the Stalin government that the cases must be withdrawn, and we are hopeful that they would do it.
So the cases is on one side, sir. That is the fallout of the actual reason, which is the protest against nuclear power that was being generated, or that is going to be generated at that point of time when you're protesting. What has happened to that itself? Your struggle, your protest against the reactor coming up, the fears that you had that this reactor could lead to something devastating. These were the things that were spoken a decade ago. What is the situation right now? Have you learned to live with it, or because there is so much emphasis on nuclear power that's happening right now? So is there a change of heart? Do you think that it's okay, it's a safe place now?
No, we still stand our ground, and we are very much against the nuclear policy and projects of the Indian government. The Kudankulam reactors 1 and 2 are up and running, but we have serious reservations about their standard, their safety, and many other issues. We have been demanding that the central government should issue a white paper on the standard and the safety of the reactors, but obviously they don't respect people's opinion in this country. And we are also opposing the expansion on the ground that it is not safe to pile so many nuclear reactors in one place. We saw what happened in Fukushima, and we should really learn our lessons from that. Now, what is happening in Zaporizhzhia plant in Ukraine is another thing. Both Ukraine and Russia are playing their war right on the ground, and it could very well be the next Chernobyl or Fukushima. So in a highly and densely populated country like India, to have all these nuclear power plants at one place, along with away from reactors, waste management centers, desalination plants, administrative blocks, it's going to be a huge mega complex. It's definitely not in the best interests of our country. Just a day ago, the Chinese surveillance ship was docked in Hambantota. Yes. They have just left. There is war games going on between China and Taiwan, and now Japan and Russia. So much is going on in the Pacific and Indian Ocean, and it is not really safe to have this kind of huge complexes that could see all kinds of disasters.
So, but you are talking about the security threat that could be because of a nuclear power plant. But the other aspect that comes into picture is the power security, the energy security that countries are looking into. You mentioned the Ukraine war. So there is a talk now that because of the Ukraine war, because of the pressure on other sources of fuels, people especially countries like France and Germany, are considering returning to nuclear power, which they thought they should shun. So this is probably giving a perspective that we should be looking at nuclear power as a positive kind of source for energy rather than something that we should be worried about, right?
You know, as far as India is concerned, we are producing hardly 3% of our power electricity from nuclear sector. It is negligible, and we can easily compensate by setting up a few solar power plants and windmills. So that argument doesn't really hold any water. Now, as far as the revival of this industry is concerned, nuclear industry is part and parcel of the larger global military, industrial, academic, corporate complex. They are very powerful, and they don't leave any single opportunity which they can use to revive their industry. Now, in Germany, there are some talks about going back on the schedule they had, that shutting down all the nuclear power plants by 2020. Now, they haven't started working on that yet, and the larger German opinion, public opinion, is definitely not in favor of such a revival. So they are only utilizing the situation to reverse the trend and revive their industry. I don't think it's going to happen, because around the world people are concerned. Actually, people are more concerned now after the Zaporizhzhia incident about the safety of nuclear reactors,
right,
and nuclear weapons. Look at what's going on. The Russian president is openly talking about using nuclear weapons in their war. And so what's happening between China and Taiwan? There is a threat of using nuclear weapons. So the world is becoming more and more dangerous. So I don't think intelligent public opinion will be in favor of nuclear weapons or nuclear power, definitely anywhere in the part of the world.
But I'm sure this argument has come to you several times in the past. I think I myself would have discussed this with you in the past, that this is still considered the cleanest fuel. Governments are vying for this. Even Tamil Nadu has said that they need more share of the power that's being generated from Kudankulam. All this is giving an impression that what's happening in Kudankulam is actually a very productive thing.
No, that's the excuse they come up with, that nuclear power is the cheapest and cleanest and it doesn't produce any carbon emission and all that. But that is not true though. Look, if you look at the amount of cement, steel, the conventional power that you use in the construction of a nuclear power plant, maintenance of a power plant, all these come from polluting sources. So the amount of carbon emission that is involved in the construction, management and decommissioning and all that processes is quite considerable, one thing. Second thing, yes, polluted air is a problem, we agree. But poisoning the earth cannot be the answer. What are we going to do with the waste, which is going to be there for 42,000 years? Above more than 40,000 years, you are stuck with that waste. How are we going to manage? What are we going to do? Even today, the government of India says that they don't have the technology to build the deep geological repository, which is going to be the final resting place for all the nuclear waste. We are constructing nuclear power plants all across the country. So we will be left with an enormous amount of waste. What are we going to do? Even Germans and the French and the British and Americans don't have an answer. And what are we going to do? So nuclear waste is a big issue. And carbon pollution is a problem, of course. But the answer is definitely not nuclear power. Changing our lifestyle, producing electricity from renewable sources can only be the intelligent way of answering this issue.
One senior bureaucrat I was talking to was saying about this syndrome called NIMBY syndrome, not in my backyard. So they're saying that, the protesters are basically concerned that their backyard should not be used for nuclear power, but it can be generated somewhere else. It's fine. Others can generate, but it should not happen here. Was that the
That's
syndrome?
Definitely not the case, because People's Movement Against Nuclear Energy has joined hands with quite a lot of anti-uranium mining projects like Jadugoda in Meghalaya, and we have been supporting the struggles that has been happening in Mithivirdi in Bhavnagar district, Gujarat, in Jaitapur power plant in Maharashtra. We have formed an Indian national group, National Alliance of Anti-Nuclear Movements, NAM, CNDP, Coalition for Nuclear Disarmament and Peace. Quite a few groups are there. So we are not asking that no nuclear power plant should come up in Kudankulam and you do anything everywhere. No, we are not saying that. We are against India's nuclear program completely altogether.
So that brings me to the next question, sir. In the sense that are the protesters, so many we saw a decade ago, thousands of protesters had turned up for against this whole plan, against this whole idea of constructing a nuclear power reactor in Kudankulam. Are they together? Are they still in that same frame of mind, or has that thought process been diluted? That's question number one. Second question which comes to mind along with that is, you've seen the regimes change. It was a Congress government when these protests were raging. Congress has gone, now there is BJP that's come to power. You're seeing that, you're seeing the influence of that also at the national level. How is this being viewed? Do protesters now think that their pleas are being heard now and then they were let down? And also brings to the question that you started off by saying that the state government gave you an assurance but has let you down. How are the protesters and how are they looking? Are they still in the same frame of mind in terms of opposing the reactor, or is there a sort of indifference that has come in?
People of India are very intelligent. They know what they want. They have their own mind. They surely know what they want and what is in their best interest. But the national elites do not want to acknowledge that simple fact. They think that we are all idiots and they know what we want and they can decide. This kind of fascist development paradigm has been ruling the country for some time. So they think that it's not the failure of the people. People are very clear. You come down to our people and talk to them, our women, our youth, our people, our fisher people, our traders, farmers, they're all very clear that they don't want this power plant at all. Not only the power plant, so-called development projects across the country, across the state. Let's talk about Tamil Nadu. Neutrino project, Sterlite project, hydrocarbon. People are against all these things. People want a different type of development. Now the elites, the ruling class, is the one that has failed. In a democratic system, you should listen to the people. People know, people have a mind of their own. They know what they want and what they don't want. Listen to them, engage them in a dialogue. Let them decide. That is what democracy is all about. But here, these guys are using the fascist development paradigm. We know what you want and we will do it. You just lie down and take it. That cannot happen.
So if people were not listened to during, because around 2010-11, when this protest was really at its peak, it was the Congress government. I still remember Mr. Narayanaswamy had come there, held talks. Even our late former president had come, held talks. What is the kind of change that you see? What happened during then, the Congress government that was in power at the center, and now we have a BJP-led government at the center. Is there any change that you see? Similarly, at the state level also, it was the ADMK then, and now you have a DMK in power.
It's not the party that really matters. It's the mindset of the ruling class. They are colonized. They are hopelessly colonized. They buy into this Western development paradigm. They just imitate what the masters say. They are subservient slaves of these Western masters. So a party doesn't really matter. But even if you take the party, Congress party has paid the price. We told them, even during the struggle, in all the TV debates, I myself repeated that you will be thrown into the dustbin of history. It has happened. The whole Congress party is nowhere. Now we say the same thing to the BJP. BJP is doing the same thing. They call themselves Indian nationalists, but they are doing everything against the interests of the nation, about the country. And they repeat the same mistake. So it's the ruling class, the elites, who decide. Now, we opposed the Manmohan Singh government. Manmohan Singh government came up with all kinds of childish accusations that we got money from abroad. I personally got money from Scandinavian countries, America, Antarctica, all over the world. They couldn't prove anything. Even the BJP government couldn't prove anything. So instead of coming up with excuses like this, instead of coming up with concocted stories like this, why don't you be democratic, listen to the people what they want? So we are saying now, if BJP government continues along the same lines of the Congress government, these guys will also be thrown into the dustbin very soon.
All right, but then the constituency that you're talking about, who are really affected, who feel that the government is not looking, especially when it comes to this particular aspect of nuclear power, or the effects of that, isn't that a very small constituency for such a consequence to eventually damage an entire party or to even affect a party or dent it even.
No, that is not true though. Look, we think that the struggle happened only in a small coastal village in the southern tip of India. But look at the reverberations. The whole India-US nuclear deal was challenged. The national parliament didn't have any debate on this issue. This nuclear, Dr. Manmohan Singh government considered this as the pinnacle of their achievement. This was the project, his pet project. This was his contribution to India's whole history of development and all that. Where is it? All over the country. In Bhavnagar district, Gujarat, Mithivirdi, people opposed a project, a nuclear power park that was going to be constructed with American contribution. People opposed it. Gujarat BJP government yielded to their pressure, shifted the project to Andhra Pradesh. People have won. Jaitapur, French nuclear reactor, has been completely stalled. So, all over the country, people are very clear. People don't want, in a country like ours.
Politically, the mindset does not seem to have changed, right? Even there was a push towards accepting this. You know, if we have to do it, we have to go ahead with this project because this is good for the country. And there was a clear narrative that was built saying that this is good. These people who are opposing don't understand that this is really good. I think the same narrative is on even when the political bosses have changed. So, where do you see any sort of light in terms of continuing with this, saying that Kudankulam is bad for us, while, like I said, states are vying for power that's coming out of there?
The BJP fellows are lying, and the media houses that support the fascists are repeating the same kind of message. They don't want any kind of dissension in the country. But do you really think people of our country will take it lying down, this Hindu Rashtra Nirman Samiti, their 750-page constitution rubbish, their plan of changing the national capital from Delhi to Varanasi and denying voting rights to Muslims and Christians in the country? Do you think that is going to happen? Do you think this is Idi Amin's Uganda? Do you think this is Pol Pot's Cambodia? This is India. This is a beautifully powerful, beautiful country. This is a huge, wonderful concept. You cannot just mess up with all that. No matter how powerful you are, how intelligent you are, you cannot do it. You know, you may have done something in your respective states with the help of your rich friends. My friends, please reconsider. This is India. I am telling you, I am traveling all over the country. I am meeting with young people. Young people are ready for a change. I am going to tell you that this Bharat Jodo Yatra is going to be a huge success. Young people are buying or dying for a new dream. It will be a huge success. Take my word. We are going to see it. On September 7th, they are going to start. By the time they finish, the history of the country, the political fate of the country will be changed. I'm telling you.
So this is interesting. You were somebody who were affected by this party.
Yeah.
But you're saying that the representative of this party, Mr. Rahul Gandhi, is sort of giving you hope to lead a movement that will bring a change against the present ruling dispensation. And then eventually you think there will be a sort of change of heart, and your main cause that you were standing will eventually be heard. I mean, is that the circuitous route that you're actually
No, what I'm saying is, look, if you are democratic, if you believe and respect your people, and you engage in a dialogic engagement, you will be a success. Rahul Gandhi is intelligent enough, honest enough to say that yes, there were some past mistakes. And he says, I am not seeking any kind of unconditional support from you. Give me conditional support. I listen to you. There are concerns, serious concerns, grave concerns, and that gives me hope. Instead of completely dismissing you, this man is engaging in a dialogue with you, is willing, courageous enough, honest enough to accept his mistakes or his party's mistakes, and is ready and willing to have a new beginning. That's the quality of a leader. Now, we are talking about 21st century. We are talking about a young leader here. We are not talking about some old, corrupt, inefficient congressman. You know, this is a new person, new leadership. This is going to happen. I am telling you, I am very hopeful. And people of India should be hopeful. We are going to have a new beginning.
All right, so thank you so much for spending your time and giving us so much insights on what
Thank
you've been
you.
thinking on what's going on in the country. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll meet again with another interesting personality very soon. Thank you for watching.
Subscribe to the Federal's YouTube page for more interesting updates.